Well, Macron is the latest Western official who's trying to get some sort of take from Putin on the U.S. and EU response to Russia's security demands. There's this divide whereby the U.S. and EU are trying to engage with Russia while also not giving ground on Russia's core demands to roll back NATO and to make sure that Ukraine never joins NATO, which they've said is unacceptable. So Macron yesterday, he gave this interview where he said that this isn't really about Ukraine, this is about Russia's security concerns, and he's trying to feel some sort of common ground with Putin, playing good cop almost, if you will. So that's where we are today, but it doesn't look like that there's going to be any kind of breakthrough. The Kremlin said today that they don't feel like the West is really adequately responding to what it wants, and more troops and equipment keep arriving at the Ukrainian border.
I was thinking about Russian history and the Olympics, Max, and this is going to sound interesting or maybe weird, but it is accurate. I don't know if there's anything to it or not, but I was in Sochi in 2014 covering the Olympics for NBC when Russia effectively invaded Crimea. Russia also went to war with Upper Ossetia, part of the country of Georgia, in 2008 during the Beijing Games then. Bizarrely, Vladimir Putin seems to have some kind of tie with whether it's global news coverage perhaps is elsewhere or not, Max. We obviously have the Olympics on right now. Kind of a weird bit of timing.
I don't think that there's really too much you can read into that, because if you compare what happened in Georgia and Ukraine with the Olympics there, it's really two different things that Russia was doing. The 2008 Olympics were in the summer when Russia invaded Georgia, and that happened right at the beginning of the Olympics. Putin was actually in Beijing when that happened, much to the chagrin reportedly of the Chinese. Whereas in 2014 they were having the Olympics in Sochi, and then Russia didn't actually start sending more troops into Crimea until right after those Olympics were ended. I think Viktor Yanukovych, former president of Ukraine, he was at the opening ceremony in Sochi, and he waving a Ukrainian flag. I think he had no idea that he was going to be fleeing there in about 2 or 3 weeks. I think what it does tell you, if anything, with these coincidences, is that there's a lot of opportunism to the way that Russia is acting. I don't think it's really to do with news coverage. I think, with Macron's visit, he called him 3 times in 10 days before this. The West has made it very clear that it's focused on this rather than the Olympics. So I don't think, I think weather is going to be a stronger consideration. Yeah. And maybe not even that.
Only bring it up because actually I was there when Putin was in Sochi when some of this stuff started in Crimea. I just wonder if he's using international media attention elsewhere, although I think this would be much bigger, Max. Talk to us about the importance of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Obviously, I talk a lot about energy here on CNBC, a senior national correspondent as well. This is a massive part of this entire situation, is it not? It looks like Germany is not going to play hardball because they need Russian gas.
I'm not so sure. I think there's a certain expectation in Russia that the Kremlin almost seems to be coming to terms with the fact that Nord Stream 2 is going to be effectively mothballed, but because of Germany is coming around to the Allied stance on sanctions with this crisis, and the U.S. has made a lot of efforts to find alternative energy supplies for Europe in countries like Qatar and Azerbaijan. Maybe some American LNG could be redirected to Europe. From Russia's perspective, it doesn't really change very much, because over the standoff over Nord Stream 2, which predates this current Ukraine crisis, Russia has been supplying gas already to Germany, and it's much less about Nord Stream 2 than it is about what happens to the existing gas supplies, which Russia supplies 41% of the European Union's gas, and that's very hard to replace overnight.